Welcome to Mind and Magic, where we demystify the occult and talk about all things esoteric. Today I want to get into the top 5 worst things about being a ceremonial magician. Let's get into it.
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
Now, normally I wouldn't think this way because I do my best to avoid thinking in negative terms, so I really had to brainstorm for this one. But there are pros and cons to everything, and so I thought I should do a list on the downside of being a magician. So let's kick it off with
Number 5.
information overload. Now, this one is more towards beginners when you're first starting out. The natural tendency is to try to absorb as much information as possible. However, just like when you eat too much at one time and you get indigestion, the same happens with the mind when you feed it too much information at one time. You get information overload. People will write me and say, I really love your mystery school. I love your channel. I've been binge watching it. And I'm flattered for that. But that also makes it more likely that you're not going to retain or remember the information that you're viewing. Information overload makes for horrible recall because there's just too much. And so we chunk things down into more manageable, digestible pieces so that we can actually retain the information that we're learning. People have been asking me for years to make the Laws of Magic and the other larger courses that I have available all at once instead of over a year-long subscription. But that wouldn't do anyone any good because it would be information overload. But I understand the draw and appeal of it because when you want to get into something, you want to jump in with both feet. When you are passionate about something, you want to go. But my advice, especially when starting out, is to slow down, take your time, and break the information and lessons that you're absorbing down into more manageable sized chunks. You'll actually develop faster that way as a magician than if you tried to rush it or force it and get information overload.
Number 4.
The next worst thing about being a ceremonial magician is the cost. Ceremonial magic is not cheap. It can be very expensive depending on which aspect you're getting into, but it's still going to cost you money no matter what. Now, just for an example, I recently had acquired one of the rarest and most difficult pieces in all of occult magic. The infamous lion skin belt of the Lesser Key of Solomon. I mean, that was a steal at $1,300. And that was just for a 60-year-old thin strip of hide that wasn't in that great a shape. So I still had to take it to a leather repair shop to strengthen it and turn it into a belt. And I'm hoping by the time this video is released that I'll have it back. Now, that's one of the more extreme examples, but magic is still going to cost you. You're going to have your books, your tools, your implements, your robes. Are you going to have your own permanent temple setup? Your altar? Even if you make your tools yourself, you still have to pay for materials. There's a lot more than you would initially consider that goes into this. Now, I've said it from the beginning that when it comes to me personally, magic has to pay for the magic. Otherwise, you're doing it wrong. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. Because ceremonial magic can have such a high cost, the magic has to pay for itself. That's why, to me, money magic should be one of the first types of magic you should do. It's one of the easiest also. You should have it set up so that this field perpetually funds itself. And once you get that set up, it won't be as much of a problem anymore. However, it will still be expensive.
Number 3.
The third worst thing about being a ceremonial magician is not relating to others. Once you've gone through the initiation process, including self-initiation curriculum, you are not going to relate to other people the same way that you did before. You're not as invested in the mundane things that they value, I guess is the best way of putting it. It's quite difficult for me to get together with normal, average, everyday people and not roll my eyes at some of the things that they talk about. And that's not because I'm better than them. It's not because I'm above them in any way. There is no superiority complex. It's just I no longer value those kinds of things. I mean, how long are you going to stick around and hang with others who only talk about things that you have absolutely no interest in and don't care about at all? Like celebrity gossip. If you hate that kind of thing now, wait till you get through initiation. And you may even find that some of the things you did like before initiation, you no longer do. So your mileage may vary with this one because for some people, this isn't going to be that much of a problem. And for others, it's going to be a huge problem. And knowing this, I warned about it early on this channel, like within the first couple of videos, if not the first video. I know I talked about it very early on because this could be a deal breaker for many people, and I wouldn't blame them if it was. So all I can say is be prepared for it because it will happen once you go through initiation.
Number 2.
The next worst thing about being a magician is the repetition. You are going to be doing a lot of repetition with the rituals that you perform. So it can be quite challenging at times to do things and keep it fresh. I mean, come on, let's face it. After you've done the LBRP hundreds upon hundreds of times, it can lose a little bit of its flair. And so it could be a challenge at times to keep things from being stale. Now, this mainly applies to the rituals that you're doing daily and not so much the bigger operations that you'll be planning out from time to time. The daily work can be a bit of a drag, but understand that that's just part of the process and a large part of initiation and your transformation into a magician. You will get to switch it up a bit from grade to grade, but it's pretty much all the same format. There's not really that big of a change. Really, the biggest thing that you could do to help with the boredom of repetition is to just stay present in the moment and not view it as something that you just need to get through or rush through.
Number 1.
And the top worst thing about being a magician is time. And I mean that in more ways than one. First off, there's a considerable amount of time in becoming a magician. It's not something that just happens overnight, no matter how much information you rush to consume. You may have heard me say it before that I recommend at least 10 months in each outer grade, of which there are 6, including Neophyte and Portal. That is a considerable time investment, and not many people would be willing to do that, and I completely understand. Being a ceremonial magician takes a lot of self-discipline just to stick with your training for that long. And then once you become a magician and you've gone through all that, now it's hard to find the time to do those operations that you want to do because now you're a busy person with a full schedule, many responsibilities and obligations, and it may be tough to fit things in on that full moon that you need to do your operation on. You may need to move things around quite a bit in your schedule to fit things in as you need them to. This is certainly the worst part of being a magician to me, just finding time to fit it all in. My to-do list is always full. There's always something I could be working on, to the point where when I have to do a major magical operation, I have to really fit it into my schedule. And that, to me, is the worst part of being a ceremonial magician. When now that you have so much going on, it's difficult to find time for things, and the time that it takes in becoming a magician in general. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like and share it if you did. Social media links will be on screen in a moment. Visit mindandmagic.com for programs, merch, and more. And I will see you next time. Take care.